Hello, we have four properties in total to align items within grid container and individually. And let's take a look at our markup. So how can we align those within the grid? Okay. This is our markup. We have a div with the class container, and then we have four grid items, class 1, 2, 3, 4. We go to our CSS, and this is our container. We have a grid template columns with 3 columns, and the grid outer rows 100 pixel each grid gap. And this one I'm just going to remove. This is some styles for a grid container. And this is our grid items classes. Okay, so we place what we did is so we declare grid on the container, give it a width, again grid template columns, outer rows, some styling, just center it on the page with margin auto. Then again grid container, so some padding to the items. We target items, those divs within the container. And then grid items individually. So we place each item individually. So let's take a look. So grid item 1. So we say it. We use shorthands. So grid column 1, it means it just spans by default 1 column. And just to demonstrate this, let's just inspect our code. Let's do inspect. So you guys see. So this is our grid. I'm going to change this. Just going to remove so we can see the grid. Okay, so the first item what we place it, we said, let's take a look here. So grid column 1. So it just spans 1 column, and then grid row 1, 2, 3. So this grid column 1, and then rows 1, 2, 3. And then same 2, item 2, grid column 2. Again, this is a shorthand. Again, we're just using one value. By default, it spans 1 column. So grid column 2 to 3. So let's take a look. Grid column 2, line 2 to line 3. Okay. And then grid column 3, the third box with the class 3. Then grid column 3 spans 1 line, and then grid row 1, 3. The all 3 span. We told them to span row 1 to 3. Okay, line 1 to line 3. And let's take a look. So it's line 1, 1, 2, 3. They all span 3 lines in the row. Okay. And then the last one, D4. Let's take a look here. What we have, D4, we say please span line 1 up to line 4, and then a grid row 3. Line 1 to line 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 across all our container, and then grid row 3. By default, we didn't declare the second value, so it just spans 1. So 3, 1, so it's just 1 row here. Okay, so let's take a look what's important about those properties. So in total, we have 4 properties to align items within container and individually. So let's take a look first at the alignment within the container. So to align item within the container, it's important to understand that what it means, a grid area, the meaning of the grid area, and the CSS spec, it says grid area is a logical space used to lay out one or more grid items. And a grid area consists of one or more adjacent grid cells. Let's take a look here. So grid area, again, grid area is the logical space used to lay out one or more grid item, and grid area consists of one or more adjacent grid cells. So, for example, if we look at div 1, the grid area for this div is one cell and then the second cell. So also spec says it is bound by 4 grid lines. So which is 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever, like however you can count them, it doesn't matter, I guess. So just 4 lines. So this is the grid area. Same for box 2, same for box 3, and then grid area for box 4. So that's important concept to understand this. Okay, and let's take a look at, again, container properties. So the first is justify items. So default is stretch, and then start and center. Okay, so we go to our container. So what means default? Default means when we don't declare justify items at all. So right now on our containers, this is default. So default is stretch. So just I'm just gonna do justify just to show you justified items, and then stretch, and there should be no change because this is the default. Okay. Okay, you see there's no change because this is default value. Then we have start and center. So let's see, start. You see, we start, so it aligns, so justify items, it aligns items horizontally along the inline or row axis, horizontally here, meaning, okay. So justify item starts, so it just pushes them to the start of their grid area. Then justify items end pushes them to the end of the grid area, you see. And then justify items center. So it centers them within their grid area. Okay, so same concept is for horizontal alignment, same concept for vertical alignment within the container. So the only difference, we have align items, but again, same values as for justify items. So what we can do is just change it and just to see what happens. So this is align items. So before we were aligning them horizontally, now we're aligning them vertically within their area. Okay, so this is center, align item center, then what else I have? Center, align items start, again start, vertical, and then align items end. Okay. That's the container, aligning items within the container, the whole items. Okay, so now we also have two properties to align items individually. If you want to target, say, 1 item or 2 items out of 4, so we can do that. So to align items horizontally, 1 item, say, horizontally, we use justifyself. Okay, and what we can do, we can pick just whatever item we want. So let's just item 1, light sea green. Okay, before we just need to remove this on the container. Just gonna delete this. Okay, so now it defaults to stretch. So now targeting individual. So just justify self. Again, align horizontally. And say what happens is like the first one, the first box. We do justify self and we say start. Let's see what happens. Okay, so justify self, you see we target only one item, so horizontally. Or we can do, say for example, justify self on item 2 start. So same. So you guys understand the concept, very easy. And to align items vertically, I just align self and it's the same values as for justify self. The only difference we just change align self, but it's the same value on start and center. Default is stretch. Let's just try this one. So align self start. So item 2. Okay. So that's basically how this works. Is you can use it for the creative ways if you need to do some be more creative with your layouts. But from my understanding, the important point here to grab is that to understand how it is related to a grid area. And you can guys always check the spec where it says a grid area definition. And yeah, that's all I wanted to share with you today, guys. And as always, thank you for watching.